Hello. Today's story takes place in Mississauga, Canada. This is a city in the province of Ontario, Canada, and it's the third largest city in Ontario. It's also an important transportation hub in the Greater Toronto Area, with 7 provincial highways passing through the city. Its geographical location is quite special. Across the lake lies the state of New York in the United States. Our story today unfolds here. At around 10:30 p.m. on January 18, 2003, the phone at a police station in Mississauga suddenly rang. An officer picked up the call, and on the other end was the sobbing voice of a girl. She painfully reported that her mother had an accident while bathing and was now lying motionless in the bathtub. The police immediately went to the house the girl mentioned. In the bathtub of the second-floor bathroom, they found a woman who had stopped breathing. Officers attempted first aid, but unfortunately, the woman had been dead for some time. Through investigation, the victim was identified as Linda, a single mother currently living with her 3 children. The callers were her 2 daughters, Sandra, 16 years old, and Beth, 15 years old. The 2 girls stated that around 6 p.m., they went out to have dinner and drinks with 2 friends at a nearby restaurant. When they left home, their mother, Linda, had been drinking and was preparing to take a bath. When they returned home at 10:30 p.m., they didn't see Linda anywhere. They searched everywhere and finally found their mother lifeless in the bathtub on the second floor. They immediately called 911. The police were very sympathetic to the grieving sisters. They had been relying on their mother, and now their fragile family was completely shattered. To avoid disturbing the scene and to provide the sisters with temporary accommodation, the police contacted their aunt so they could stay at her house. The officers began to meticulously examine the scene. They found no signs of forced entry into the house. The furnishings in the rooms were intact. Nothing was stolen. The bathroom where Linda died was tidy, with items neatly arranged. There were no signs of struggle or conflict. Everything seemed to indicate that Linda had done something unfortunate in the bathtub. This appeared to be a tragic accident. However, the police didn't think so. To them, any mysterious death in a bathtub was unusual and suspicious, requiring thorough investigation. The autopsy of Linda didn't reveal anything abnormal. There were no wounds on her body, and no stranger's fingerprints were found, except for a very high blood alcohol concentration, up to 400 milligrams per 100 milliliters. This alcohol level is 5 times the legal limit for driving. Clearly very dangerous and potentially fatal. Beside the bathtub, there were 2 glasses filled with vodka. Upon inquiry and based on the statements of her 2 daughters, Linda was a heavy alcoholic who drank almost every day. Could it be that she was indeed intoxicated, slipped into the bathtub, and drowned? Linda Anderson was born in 1959 in Pulaski, Poland, after growing up in her hometown. It's unclear what prompted her to move to Canada, a distant country. She then settled in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Linda was very pleased with the scenery and people there. What made her even happier was that not long after, she met the Prince Charming of her life. The 2 fell deeply in love and quickly got married. In 1987, Linda gave birth to their eldest daughter, Sandra. A year later, their second daughter, Beth, was born. The family of 4 was filled with happiness, and Linda was full of hope for the future. However, misfortune struck and shattered this happy family. For reasons unknown, perhaps enticed by the outside world or tired of family life, her husband, Coben, heartlessly abandoned his wife and children. After the divorce, he didn't provide any support for his 2 daughters. The burden of raising the 2 children fell entirely on Linda's shoulders. To make a living, she had to work while taking care of her children. The pressures of life weighed heavily on her, and the suffering led the once optimistic Linda to develop depression. She began to turn to alcohol to ease her sorrow. But drowning sorrows in alcohol only made things worse. She drank a lot, but her troubles didn't diminish. When drunk, she often yelled at her children. Sandra and Beth were very young and couldn't share the burden with their mother. Life for the 3 of them was extremely difficult, and conflicts were frequent. A few years later, Linda felt that the family needed a man, so she met a new boyfriend, Doug, and quickly remarried. Doug had previously been convicted of drunk driving, But aside from that, he didn't seem to have any other issues. He appeared to be a gentle man. And initially, family life was quite peaceful. Linda even gave birth to a son for Doug, named Robert. However, Doug's true nature was soon revealed. He was not only violent but also sexually abused Sandra and Beth. When Linda was not at home, he molested Sandra, who was only 12 years old at the time. The two girls had no way to resist their stepfather's abuse. Threatened by Doug, they didn't dare tell their mother, only confiding in a pastor at a nearby church. Notably, although the pastor realized the seriousness of the problem, he didn't report it to the police. He merely advised Sandra to have an honest conversation with her stepfather. This approach was clearly ineffective, and the sisters continued to be abused. In 2001, the matter was exposed. Doug's domestic violence was discovered, and he was convicted once again and kicked out of the house. 2 failed marriages left Linda in extreme pain. She once again had to shoulder the responsibility of raising 3 children alone. Fortunately, Sandra and Beth were now older and could help their mother with some household chores and take care of their younger brother. To make ends meet for the 4 of them, Linda had to work multiple jobs simultaneously. Facing immense pressure, coupled with mounting worries, her alcoholism worsened. She basically drank every day after work and was often intoxicated. Most of her income was squandered on alcohol. Neighbors and friends were well aware of her condition. After talking to some people, the police grasped the situation. When Linda died, there were 2 bottles of vodka on the bathroom shelf. The initial autopsy concluded that the cause of death was drowning, with a high blood alcohol concentration, and no other abnormalities were found. This aligned with Linda's long-term alcoholism and her daughter's statements. The police thought they had overthought the situation. This was just an accidental drowning due to intoxication. The case was quickly closed, because Linda had purchased life insurance. After her death, the insurance payout was divided among her 3 children. Sandra and Beth each received a total of $133, while 3-year-old Robert received $67. At that time, Sandra was only 16, and Beth was 15, both minors. Therefore, their aunt became their legal guardian, and they moved in with her. Their aunt felt great compassion for their situation and took care of them attentively. Robert was taken care of by other relatives of Linda. The matter seemed to fade into oblivion over time. But unexpectedly, 11 months later, the appearance of an important figure brought the case back into the spotlight. Shocking all of Canada. In December 2003, a young man named Charlie, claiming to be a friend of Sandra, went to the police station. He said he had discovered a shocking secret. Linda's previous drowning was not an accident, she had been murdered. The culprits were none other than her 2 daughters, Sandra and Beth. This information astonished the police. If this were true, then everyone had been deceived by these 2 girls. But thinking carefully, it seemed impossible because there were no suspicious signs at all. However, Charlie spoke with great certainty. He also stated that Sandra had confessed this to him, even detailing how they committed the crime. The police decided it was better to investigate than to overlook something significant. They began a covert investigation and planned to use Charlie to extract information from the sisters. Charlie was very willing to cooperate with the police. The police lent Charlie a car equipped with hidden surveillance devices capable of recording video and audio. Over the next month, Charlie frequently invited the sisters out. Sandra and Beth had a habit of using prohibited substances and enjoyed partying, so they agreed every time. In the car, Charlie deliberately led them to talk about the process and details of harming Linda. The sisters, unsuspecting, began bragging. They not only revealed all the details of the crime but also felt proud of successfully deceiving the police. Now, without any supervision and with a large sum of money to spend, they were living very comfortably. The police collected all the videos and recordings obtained over a month. After carefully reviewing everything, the officers were extremely indignant. The cruel actions of the sisters were truly appalling. From the recordings, the police learned the following about the case. The sisters deeply hated their mother's alcoholism, especially since she spent most of the family's income on drinking, leaving them with no pocket money. Seeing their peers wearing beautiful clothes and frequenting bars and shopping centers, They also longed for such a life. By chance, they learned that their mother had a life insurance policy with a payout of up to $200. If their mother died, they would each receive at least $130. They even planned how to spend the money. First, travel to Europe, then buy a small house and the sports car they loved. Thinking about this, a crazy plan to kill their mother formed in their minds. They began searching online for all kinds of ways to commit the perfect crime and deceive the police. From guns to knives. Eventually, they chose a method involving drowning. After researching and consulting friends, they decided to exploit their mother's alcoholism. Strong alcohol combined with a large dose of Tylenol, acetaminophen, would severely damage the liver and affect the heartbeat. Their plan was first to get their mother drunk, then give her a large amount of Tylenol, and finally lure her into a bathtub filled with water under the pretext of taking a relaxing soak. Then wait to collect the insurance money. On January 21, 2004, the police arrested Sandra and Beth based on the content of the recordings. The case was reopened. Since both were minors, they were detained at a juvenile detention center during the investigation. To prevent collusion, they were held separately. However, the issue was that relying solely on the secret recordings and videos was not enough to convict them. If the sisters denied the charges, claiming it was just made-up stories, the police couldn't do much. Therefore, more evidence was needed to prosecute them. In the first interrogation, both firmly denied the charges and said they had perfect alibis. They stated that on the evening of the incident, from 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., they were having dinner with friends at a restaurant. This was corroborated by their friends' testimonies and the restaurant's surveillance cameras, which was verified to be accurate. However, there was certainly something fishy. Fortunately, the police had meticulously recorded the crime scene, including the temperature and depth of the water in the bathtub. At that time, the water in the bathtub was ice cold. Combined with Linda's initial autopsy results, forensic experts speculated that the time of death could have been before 6 p.m. This broke Sandra and Beth's alibi. Additionally, the police found on their computer a large amount of search history about alcohol, Tylenol, and how to use them together, etc. In their conversations with friends, there was much information about how they wanted to deal with their mother and even asked friends for advice. After the case was reopened, forensic doctors re-examined blood samples taken from Linda and indeed found, besides a high alcohol concentration, a Tylenol level 3 times the safe dose. All these were very unfavorable evidence against the sisters. What shocked and angered the police even more was that 3 of their classmates knew about the matter, including a male student who not only failed to report it but also participated in the plan from beginning to end, helping to devise the plan and even providing 6 Tylenol pills. When the sisters were committing the crime, he called to remind them to hold their mother's head underwater for at least 4 minutes. His actions were truly despicable, and he was also arrested. Notably, after their mother's death, the sisters not only deceived the police but were also very arrogant, repeatedly telling friends how they had perfectly dealt with their mother without arousing suspicion. After receiving the insurance money, they spent lavishly on clothes, expensive jewelry, etc. They showed no signs of sadness or grief. Such abnormal behavior couldn't go unnoticed by those around them. But except for Charlie, others chose to remain silent. Finally, based on all the evidence, the prosecution charged the sisters with first-degree murder. The 2 daughters had planned to kill their biological mother and almost escape legal punishment. The case shocked public opinion not only locally but across Canada. Perhaps because the circumstances were so cruel, many people believed there must be some mistake. How could 2 teenage girls commit such a heinous crime? Linda's death was just an accident. It's understandable that outsiders who didn't know the details would be skeptical. However, for the prosecutors who had thoroughly investigated everything, there was no room for sympathy. In their eyes, convicting the culprits was their responsibility and the best explanation for the deceased. The official trial began in November 2005. Sandra and Beth continued to deny the charges. However, during a separate interrogation, Sandra couldn't withstand the psychological pressure and was the first to confess. Beth later also admitted her crime. Their statements about the case matched the previous recordings entirely. First, they got their mother drunk, then gave her pills, and finally held her head underwater. Sandra wore gloves and pressed their intoxicated mother's head underwater until she lost consciousness. Then she quickly left the house to meet friends, creating an alibi. Their motive was money because they wanted to live a luxurious life abroad. At the end of the trial, Judge Bruce stated, Linda raised 4 children on her own. She had to work 2 jobs every day. And when she returned home after a long, tiring day, she could only rely on alcohol to relieve her stress. Perhaps she never imagined that the daughters she loved so much would kill her for money. Sandra and Beth had planned this for a long time and nearly executed the perfect crime. Fortunately, the truth was revealed, and there is ample evidence to convict them. This may be the most convincing evidence I've seen in over 30 years. In June 2006, after more than 6 months of trial, the court finally convicted Sandra and Beth of first-degree murder, facing the possibility of life imprisonment. However, considering that both were under 18 at the time of the crime, according to Canada's Youth Criminal Justice Act, they were juvenile offenders with a maximum sentence of only 10 years. In reality, their prison time was much less. They only had to serve 6 years in prison, then were transferred to a social center for 4 years. Although still under supervision, life there was much more comfortable than in prison. The court also planned to recover the insurance money paid to the sisters. However, after receiving the money, they had immediately squandered it, leaving only $4.848 at the time of their arrest. This amount was later recovered and transferred to Robert, Linda's youngest son. The male student who helped them plan and provided the Tylenol pills was also convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison. After confessing, Sandra gave an interview to the media. She said that since she was 12, she had been abused by her mother's boyfriend, Doug. No one could help her escape that nightmare. She and her sister lived in misery. Eventually, Doug left, but their mother sank into alcoholism, leaving them with no hope. Resentment gradually grew, and they were ultimately blinded by hatred. Because the case occurred and was tried when Sandra and Beth were under 18. Their ages and identities are protected by Canadian law. Therefore, the names used in the video are pseudonyms. The public often refers to them as the Bathtub Girls. Currently, the sisters have been released. Since their identities are protected, their current lives are not disclosed. However, according to public information, Sandra continued her studies after release and graduated from university. She has also become a single mother. In an interview, she said, "I wish my mother were still alive. She was my best friend. I want to share my life with her. I deeply regret what I did." As for Beth, she not only married and had children but also studied law and became a lawyer. When asked whether Beth was qualified to be a lawyer, her mentor said, "She has unique perspectives and keen sensitivity, which will help her become an excellent lawyer." Some other lawyers also believe that at the time of the crime, they were minors, and society should give them a chance. Of course, the sentence given to the sisters also sparked much debate in legal circles. Some argued that the punishment for juvenile offenders in Canada is too lenient. Serving a maximum of 6 years in prison and then being released sets a bad precedent and negatively affects the youth. They believe that Canada's Youth Criminal Justice Act should be amended to impose stricter punishments on murderers. However, many others argued that juveniles are not yet mature and should be given the opportunity to correct their mistakes. The sentence shouldn't be too heavy. These two viewpoints have been debated for a long time but ultimately didn't change anything. The law remains the same. In fact, the trial of juvenile offenders is controversial not only in Canada but also in many other places around the world. In 2008, journalist Bob Mitchell wrote the book, The Class Project: How to Kill a Mother, the True Story of Canada's Infamous Bathtub Girls, based on Sandra and Beth's case. In 2014, the film, Perfect Sisters, adapted from their story, was released. A year later, the film was re-released as Deadly Sisters, and broadcast in the UK. The film recreates the entire incident with very few fictional details. Those interested can watch it. In this heartbreaking story, we cannot overlook Sandra and Beth's traumatic childhood. which led them to develop hatred toward their mother, a craving for money, and numbness to crime. What's more frightening is their reaction after committing the crime. They showed no remorse but instead bragged to friends about the thrill of committing the perfect crime. Children lacking guidance and education can lose their way in the maze of desires, even falling into crime. Perhaps in each person lies the seeds of desire. And what's important is how we control them, preventing them from germinating and destroying our lives and those around us. Everything depends on our thoughts and actions. Hopefully, this haunting story will serve as a warning to all of us, not to let desires corrupt human nature. Let this be a lesson so that the bell of caution always rings. Today's video ends here. See you in the next videos. Goodbye. Today's story takes place in North Carolina, a state located on the Atlantic coast in the southeastern region of the United States. This place is famous for its majestic mountains and charming beaches. Here, agriculture and industry develop side by side, making North Carolina a place that retains traditional features while being full of modern vitality. In the year 2000, a mysterious figure appeared here. He was like a ghost, usually acting at night and targeting McDonald's restaurants. The thief always drilled a hole in the roof, then silently snuck inside to carry out his heist. This daring action made many people feel alarmed. The police had deployed forces many times to capture him but to no avail. He even escaped right before their eyes. Next, we will rewind time back to May 20th, 2000, to learn the details of the incident. On May 20th, 2000, a Saturday, at 5 a.m. at the McDonald's restaurant on Beeman Road, North Carolina, a few employees had just opened the store and began preparing for business. Suddenly, a masked man burst out from the restroom of the store. He held in his hand a .22 caliber rifle and looked extremely aggressive. The scene before them terrified the employees. They could only obediently follow his orders. Surprisingly, the robber's tone was very polite. He asked everyone to sit down. But a female employee, too scared, remained standing, not knowing what to do. At this moment, the robber calmly said to her, "Ma'am, please sit on the ground. Ma'am, could you please lie face down?" Then, by threatening them, he obtained the safe's password from the cashier and demanded that everyone go into the cold storage to wait. He even thoughtfully reminded them to put on coats to avoid getting cold. His actions and words were just like a gentleman. But if anyone dared to disobey, he wouldn't hesitate to fire a warning shot. He then grabbed all the money in the safe and quickly fled. During that time, an employee had secretly pressed the alarm button. The police quickly arrived at the scene and finally found traces of the robber in a nearby bush. He was arrested immediately. The police seized a .22 caliber rifle, a drill, a hammer, a screwdriver, and pliers. The robber's identity was confirmed as Jeffrey Allen Manchester, 27 years old. A notorious criminal. When arrested, he showed no remorse but even smiled and told the police, "Today you did a good job facing such an arrogant robber." The police said nothing more and immediately took him to the station. Investigating the scene, the police discovered a hole in the roof of the McDonald's restaurant. That was the robber's usual tactic. Late at night, when the store was empty, he would drill a small hole in the roof, then crawl inside and hide in the restroom until the employees opened for business. He would then rush out to control and force them to provide the safe's password. This was not his first crime. Since 1998, Jeffrey had used the same method to rob many McDonald's restaurants and other stores across the United States. He committed at least 40 robberies, totaling up to $100. He acted very swiftly and always escaped before the police arrived. Based on his crime characteristics, he was nicknamed Roofman and became infamous. This time, the police finally caught him. On the day of the crime, Jeffrey's initial target was another McDonald's restaurant 16 kilometers away. However, after breaking in through the roof, he discovered that the restaurant was not operating that day. There was no one inside, and he couldn't get the safe's password. So he had to find another target. This incident caused him to expose his whereabouts. Jeffrey was born in California, a smart boy and the pride of his parents. After graduating from high school, he joined the 82nd Airborne Division of the U.S. Army. a unit specializing in airborne assault operations. Here, he was thoroughly trained in many skills such as climbing, combat, counterintelligence, and the use of various weapons. These skills became the foundation for his future crimes. In 1991, at the age of 20, Jeffrey was assigned to serve at the Concord Naval Weapons Station. During this time, he fell in love and married a woman. They had 3 children together and lived a peaceful and happy life. However, that life didn't last long. 8 years later, Jeffrey and his family moved to military housing at the Concord Naval Weapons Station. In November of the same year, his wife went to the police station to report that she was a victim of domestic violence. She said she had been beaten by him many times. Eventually, their marriage broke down. His wife won custody of all 3 children, and Jeffrey had to move out. Without family ties, he began to go astray and step into the path of crime. He started committing crimes at the age of 27 after his divorce and became increasingly reckless and impulsive. He chose McDonald's as his target because the restaurants had similar structures, spacious space, and usually few staff, making it easy to control. Initially, Jeffrey only targeted McDonald's restaurants in California, then expanded his activities to Oregon, Nevada, Virginia, and Massachusetts. His crime trail spread across the United States. He became famous on both the East and West coasts. From 1998 to 2000, police across the United States tried every means to catch him but to no avail. He was extremely cunning and swift, always escaping right before the police's eyes. After being arrested, Jeffrey was charged with armed robbery, possession of dangerous weapons, and kidnapping. Although he admitted all his crimes, he still tried to fabricate stories to reduce his sentence. He claimed that he only imitated another robber's method out of curiosity. Of course, these excuses were useless. In the end, the court sentenced him to 45 years in prison. Jeffrey was detained in various prisons in North Carolina before being transferred to the Brown Creek Correctional Institution. Everyone thought he would behave himself there, but no one expected that he was plotting a daring escape plan. Brown Creek Correctional Institution, located in Anson County, is a medium-security state prison for men. Operational since 1993. With a capacity of 1.200 inmates. The prison focuses on helping inmates reintegrate into the community. It is surrounded by high fences and barbed wire, with guard towers and 24/7 patrols. Many areas are equipped with surveillance cameras monitoring every inmate's action. Escaping from here is considered impossible. Initially, when he first arrived at the prison, Jeffrey appeared very obedient and worked diligently. Thanks to his good attitude, he was evaluated as a model inmate. Later, he was allowed to work in the metal workshop. The work here was relatively light and even paid. During labor, Jeffrey always paid attention to the guards' activities, noting their shift changes. He also bought cigarettes to ingratiate himself and build good relationships with the guards, thereby creating favorable conditions for himself. Gradually, Jeffrey grasped the layout of the prison and identified blind spots in the surveillance cameras in the metal workshop. However, these were not enough. How to escape from here secretly was a difficult problem. The most common method is digging a tunnel. But this method takes time and is easily detected. Jeffrey came up with a bolder plan. He noticed that every afternoon, a truck came to the metal workshop to transport products. Under the rear of the truck, there was a space just big enough for a person to crawl into. However, he needed to create a cover with the same color as the undercarriage to avoid detection. When the guards changed shifts, Jeffrey quickly avoided the surveillance cameras, crawled under the truck, and used a ruler to measure the space to ensure the cover he would later make could conceal him perfectly. In the following days, Jeffrey bribed other inmates to get chewing gum, a small mirror, and some magnets. These were important items for his escape plan. He thought that people usually behave naturally when chewing gum, so after escaping, he would chew gum to avoid suspicion. The mirror would help him observe the surroundings while hiding under the truck. Some time later, a rectangular plywood board, 91 centimeters long and 13 centimeters wide, was completed. He painted the entire board black, He also made a black cardboard piece with magnets attached so he could stick it to the rear of the truck to cover up. Everything was ready, just waiting for the right time. That was a rainy day. Jeffrey knew that on rainy days, the guards wouldn't want to patrol outside in the rain but would usually gather indoors to drink coffee and chat. More importantly, the high humidity on rainy days would reduce the tracking ability of sniffer dogs, increasing the chance of his plan succeeding. On the afternoon of Tuesday, June 15, 2004, the sky was overcast, and dark clouds gathered. Jeffrey, 33 years old, knew that the day of action had come. Not long after, it started pouring rain. The truck, as usual, parked in front of the metal workshop. Everything went according to his plan. Jeffrey took the prepared plywood board and cardboard, waiting for the guards to take shelter from the rain, then quickly crawled under the truck. He placed the plywood board horizontally under the truck, then used magnets to attach the black cardboard to the rear, creating an optical illusion making people think it was part of the undercarriage. Jeffrey lay flat against the plywood board, curling up as much as possible. This method proved very effective, if one didn't look carefully. It was impossible to detect someone hiding underneath. The driver, after loading, drove off. As the truck passed the checkpoint, the guard only did a cursory check and didn't notice Jeffrey hiding underneath. At 3:30 p.m., the truck left the prison. Jeffrey thought the truck would travel a long distance, but unexpectedly, the driver stopped not far from the prison. His heart was pounding. Fortunately, after getting off the truck, the driver didn't check the undercarriage but went somewhere else. Jeffrey observed the surroundings through the small mirror. After confirming it was safe, he quickly crawled out from under the truck. To prepare for the escape, Jeffrey had made a camouflage outfit. He cut short the sleeves of a sports jacket, sewed up the chest area to cover the inmate number. Then he shortened the pant legs and sewed up the sides to make shorts. After some adjustments, the sports outfit completely changed, looking like regular clothes that didn't attract attention. After changing clothes, he chewed gum and walked along the highway. Not long after, a car approached. Jeffrey immediately recognized the driver as a math teacher for inmates at the prison. However, he had never attended any of this teacher's classes. And of course, the driver didn't know him. Jeffrey took a risk and signaled for a ride. Surprisingly, the driver agreed to stop and let him in. On the way, Jeffrey cheerfully chatted with the teacher. The teacher had no suspicion at all. At 4 p.m., during roll call, the guards discovered that Jeffrey was missing. Realizing something was wrong, they immediately activated the prison alarm. The police quickly arrived at the scene after receiving the report. They searched everywhere but found no suspicious traces. The surveillance cameras also didn't capture any images of Jeffrey, which made them very confused. It wasn't until the truck driver discovered the plywood board and cardboard under the truck that everyone understood how Jeffrey had escaped. After analyzing, the police believed that Jeffrey was highly likely to flee back to his hometown in California, where his ex-wife and 3 children were living. They went to his ex-wife, but she said she hadn't seen him in a long time, and they had cut off contact long ago. She said that Jeffrey didn't care about their 3 children and had never returned to visit them. Therefore, she didn't know anything about his whereabouts. The news of Jeffrey's escape quickly spread widely. His image was broadcast repeatedly on the media. The math teacher at the prison, after watching the news, was shocked to realize that the man who had hitchhiked that day was the escaped inmate. He immediately contacted the police to report the incident, also stating that Jeffrey had gotten off at a gas station along the way but didn't know where he went afterward. The police temporarily had no clues. In fact, Jeffrey hadn't gone far at all. He believed that the most dangerous place was the safest place. After getting off at the gas station, he continued to hitchhike another car and arrived at Mecklenburg County, in the city of Charlotte. This place was only over 50 kilometers from Brown Creek Correctional Institution. Jeffrey chose to come here because he had planned it in advance. Mecklenburg was a county with the lightest penalties for robbery in North Carolina. He thought this was the most ideal place. Upon arrival, the most urgent thing was to find shelter and address food issues. After some observation, he set his eyes on a Toys R Us store in the suburbs of Charlotte. He casually walked in, pretending to be a customer browsing the store. Finally, he chose a hidden spot behind the bicycle rack as his hiding place. The bicycle rack was against the wall, with a hidden space in between wide enough for a person to sleep. Taking advantage of the employee's inattentiveness, Jeffrey slipped inside, until nightfall. When the store closed, he came out. That night, he found the store's surveillance control room and the operation manual. After some tinkering, he set the surveillance system to replay mode, so whatever he did in the store wouldn't be recorded. Then he adjusted the alarm system to ensure that taking items from the store wouldn't trigger alarms. Every night, he would come out of his hiding place to find food in the Toys R Us store. The food there mainly consisted of cookies, canned goods, etc. Jeffrey was very satisfied with these items. After eating his fill, he would exercise on the store's stationary bikes. In his free time, he would climb onto the roof to play with remote-controlled cars. His life went on comfortably. However, he was still not satisfied. Although he was an escaped criminal, he still harbored intentions of returning to his profession and planned to rob Toys R Us to get a large sum of money. Therefore, he secretly installed listening devices in various places in the store to monitor the employees' every move. After some time, he understood their operating patterns. A new robbery plan formed in his mind. However, Jeffrey didn't act hastily but decided to wait until Christmas. He knew that many parents would bring their children to Toys R Us to choose Christmas gifts. And the store would have a lot of cash. As Christmas approached, Toys R Us became increasingly crowded and bustling. The number of customers increased daily. Many parents brought their children to choose toys. The employees had to continuously restock goods. Jeffrey feared being discovered, so he narrowed his hiding place. However, he still felt uneasy and decided to leave to find a new shelter. Next to Toys R Us was a closed electronics retail store. Circuit City. The store was now abandoned, with no one coming in or out. The wall behind the bicycle rack in Toys R Us was the wall of Circuit City. Taking this opportunity, Jeffrey drilled a hole in the wall to easily move between the two stores. To have a more comfortable place to live, he used plywood to build a small room under the stairs in Circuit City. Inside the room, he pasted his favorite posters and even made an outer door. The door was carefully painted for camouflage. He felt very secure living here. Then he found a way to bring electricity into the room and adjusted the airflow of Circuit City's air conditioning system so that his room would be cool. Inside the room, he installed a monitor connected to the surveillance cameras, so he could monitor the situation inside Toys R Us without moving. Compared to his previous shelter, this room was more spacious. He even added a mini basketball hoop for entertainment. While the police were frantically searching everywhere, Jeffrey was leisurely living in his nest, with food, drinks, and entertainment. However, such a life still made him feel bored. 4 months later, Jeffrey thought that everything had calmed down, so he dared to go out more. On one of his walks nearby, he discovered a church just over 300 meters from Toys R Us. From then on, every Wednesday evening, he went to the church to study the Bible. His life became more enriched. The church often organized charity fundraising activities to buy toys and notebooks for orphans. Jeffrey participated in most of these activities and always donated many toys. Of course, all those toys were stolen from Toys R Us. Thanks to his generosity, Jeffrey gained the affection of many parishioners and became famous in the community. Besides donating, he also attended singles meetings organized by the church. There, he met and fell in love with a woman. The two quickly entered into a romantic relationship. The woman was named Lily, 40 years old, had 3 children, and had just ended a 20-year marriage. To Lily, Jeffrey was a very gentlemanly man, well-spoken, and well-mannered. He often donated toys to orphans, truly a perfect man. Most importantly, Jeffrey loved and pampered her 3 children, always buying them many gifts. Gradually, the 3 children also accepted their mother's new boyfriend. Whatever they wanted, Jeffrey would try to fulfill. From then on, whenever he was free, Jeffrey would go to his girlfriend's house to play with the kids. Lily felt very happy. She believed she had found her true love. As time passed, their relationship became increasingly close. Lily was curious about Jeffrey's job. She wondered why he had so much money. So she hinted that she wanted to visit his workplace. Hearing that, Jeffrey immediately refused. He lied that he worked for the government. And his job was confidential. Outsiders were not allowed in. And he was not allowed to reveal any details to anyone. He also said that he usually lived at his workplace. Lily completely trusted his explanation. She thought her boyfriend was a talented person and believed she had found a reliable man to rely on. Jeffrey became increasingly bold. It seemed he had forgotten his status as a wanted fugitive. He not only participated in church activities but also went to the gym to exercise. Perhaps because he ate too much children's food and Toys R Us. Jeffrey had a toothache and had to see a dentist. However, right after the examination, he set fire to burn down the clinic. The reason was that the clinic required him to present an ID card. He realized that this could expose him. So he decided to burn the place to eliminate traces. Fortunately, the fire didn't cause any casualties. The police didn't find out that Jeffrey was the perpetrator. Gradually, the employees in Toys R Us also noticed something unusual. The number of toys in the warehouse continuously decreased mysteriously. But the inventory records showed nothing wrong. The only possibility left was that someone was stealing toys. They suspected and checked the surveillance cameras. But they didn't know that the cameras had been tampered with by Jeffrey. So they couldn't find any clues. Jeffrey knew that if this continued, sooner or later he would be exposed. Therefore, he decided to carry out his plan to rob Toys R Us as soon as possible. However, first, he needed a proper weapon. He noticed a gun store and decided to rob it to get 2 guns. The entire process happened very quickly. By the time the police arrived, the robber had already fled. They didn't know that the perpetrator was Jeffrey. Time passed until December 26, 2004, the day after Christmas. Jeffrey, 33 years old, decided to execute the robbery plan he had prepared for so long. Like he did with McDonald's, Jeffrey donned a mask, carried a gun, and went to Toys R Us to control the employees and herd them into a warehouse. He then ordered everyone to lie face down on the floor. However, unlike McDonald's, the number of employees in Toys R Us was much larger. Especially during the Christmas season. So there were even more staff. Which made Jeffrey uneasy. While he was careless, a staff member slipped out and secretly called the police. Jeffrey realized the situation was urgent. So he quickly controlled the remaining people, forcing them to reveal the safe's password. Finally, he obtained a large sum of money. After grabbing the money, he immediately fled. However, at that moment, the police arrived. He came face to face with a female police officer. The officer tried to catch him but failed and was punched hard by him. This was the first time Jeffrey had attacked someone during his entire criminal career. The female officer was injured and fell to the ground. Jeffrey took the opportunity to escape. Soon after, backup forces arrived. They sealed off the scene and conducted a thorough investigation of the Toys R Us store. A police dog sensed something unusual and barked towards the ceiling. The police checked the ceiling and discovered it was filled with toys. After inventory, the total value of the toys amounted to $7. This finding confirmed the previous suspicions of the employees. They said that since half a year ago, the number of toys in the warehouse had mysteriously decreased. Items were frequently missing without reason. Initially, they thought it was due to errors in inventory or problems with stock receipt. However, this situation kept happening frequently. They had checked the surveillance cameras many times but didn't find anything unusual. So they let it go. They didn't expect that the missing toys were hidden in the ceiling. However, this was only a small part of the stolen toys. The police suspected that this robbery had been planned in advance and that the robber might still be hiding inside Toys R Us. That was why he could hide such a large number of toys in the ceiling. Continuing the search, they discovered a secret space behind the bicycle rack, containing bedding and clear signs of habitation. There was also a hole in the wall connecting to the adjacent Circuit City store. This discovery surprised everyone present. It turned out the robber had been living here not just for a few days. A few days later, a police officer returned to Circuit City to check. He felt that a wall under the stairs was strange, seemingly unnecessary. Out of curiosity, he observed more carefully and found that there was a door cleverly camouflaged on the wall. If one didn't pay attention, it was very hard to detect. Pushing the door open, the scene before him left him astonished. Inside was a small room, 3 meters long and 1.2 meters wide. In the room, there was a single bed with a Spider-Man bedsheet. The walls were covered with Spider-Man posters. The room was fully equipped with electricity, water, exercise bike, swing chair, and many other living items. There was even a potty for children. Additionally, there were many DVDs in the room. Although the space was cramped, everything was neatly organized. It was hard to believe that such a secret space could hold so many items. Subsequently, the police found a fingerprint on a DVD titled, Catch Me If You Can. After examination, the fingerprint matched Jeffrey, the escaped criminal from 6 months prior. The police had been searching for him everywhere without realizing he had always been in North Carolina. Based on the collected clues, the police concluded that Jeffrey had been living here for some time. They speculated that he couldn't have just hidden in his nest without going outside. Surely, people around must have seen him. Therefore, the police brought his photo to every house in the area to inquire. Not long after, 2 people recognized the man in the photo. They said they had met him at church. But he wasn't named Jeffrey, he was John. They said that John was a good man who often donated toys to orphans. Everyone at the church knew him. The residents were shocked to learn that John was a wanted criminal. In their eyes, John was a good man sent by God. The police met with the church's pastor. He confirmed that John was his friend and that John had even given him 2 DVDs of The Lord of the Rings. The first time he came to the church, he introduced himself as John, and since then, everyone called him that. Every week, John would come to the church to participate in activities and had even found the love of his life there. Based on the pastor's information, the police found Lily, Jeffrey's girlfriend. Initially, she couldn't believe that her boyfriend was a wanted criminal. But after the police presented irrefutable evidence, she had to accept the harsh truth. Lily told the police that before meeting Jeffrey, she was very depressed due to her failed marriage. Jeffrey's appearance gave her motivation to continue living. He was very generous, often buying her gifts. Not long after they started dating, Jeffrey gave her a large diamond ring. He also loved and treated her 3 children as his own. Normally, Jeffrey would take the kids to the balcony to gaze at the stars. Just like a real father. After understanding the situation, the police guessed that Jeffrey hadn't gone far. He was still hiding somewhere in Charlotte. They persuaded Lily to help lure Jeffrey home. The action day was set for January 3rd, coinciding with Lily's birthday. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the appointed day. Lily called Jeffrey, saying she wanted to have a birthday party at home and invited him to attend. As expected, Jeffrey agreed without hesitation. That evening, Jeffrey appeared at Lily's door, holding flowers and gifts. As soon as he rang the doorbell, the police, who were lying in wait, rushed out and captured him. After being arrested, Jeffrey was allowed to call Lily. Over the phone, he apologized to her, saying he didn't intend to deceive her. He had to do so for unavoidable reasons. He also felt very remorseful and hoped Lily would be strong to live well with her 3 children. He hoped they would have a chance to meet again. Lily listened to the call with tears streaming down her face. She didn't know whether cooperating with the police was a wrong decision. Jeffrey comforted her, saying he wasn't angry with her because what had to come would come. Ending the call, both understood that their relationship had ended. Jeffrey confessed all his crimes. He recounted the details of the cases calmly, as if telling someone else's story, not his own. The police then relied on his confession to recover part of the stolen money. However, the gun he used in the robberies remained missing. 11 months after being arrested, Jeffrey was brought to trial at the Mecklenburg County Court. Defendant Jeffrey Manchester was charged with armed robbery and many other crimes. After deliberation, The jury unanimously convicted Jeffrey on multiple counts and sentenced him to 45 years in prison. He was then transferred to Central Prison in Raleigh to serve his sentence. Jeffrey's mother came to the prison to visit her son. The two talked for a while. She asked him why he was caught. Jeffrey nonchalantly replied, "It's nothing, Mom. I just got a little careless." Although Jeffrey had cooperated with the police after being arrested, he never explained why he abandoned his military career to become a criminal, gradually becoming someone who disregarded the law. Perhaps it was his failed marriage that led him to this path. After divorcing his wife, he didn't have custody of his 3 children. Loneliness and failure grew in his heart. Or perhaps he committed crimes to seek excitement and a sense of conquest. He wanted to create a mysterious facade, like the room he built in Circuit City. He longed to live a double life like Spider-Man, immersed in the illusion of another identity. In February 2024, there was news that Jeffrey's story would be adapted into a feature film titled Roofman. In the film, he is portrayed as an adventurous man with a Robin Hood style. The film is scheduled to be released in 2026. However, in the eyes of the police, Jeffrey is entirely different from his image in the film. They consider him a cold-blooded, heartless person who abandoned his children, pointed guns at others, and whose actions cause psychological harm to innocent people. He is a criminal who knows the law but deliberately violates it, a scoundrel. Once released, he will undoubtedly continue to pose a danger to society. The police's warning is not unfounded. Jeffrey attempted to escape twice, in 2009 and 2017, but both times failed. The police refused to disclose details about these escape attempts. In April 2020, Jeffrey carried out another daring escape plan. This time, he succeeded but only enjoyed a brief period of freedom before being recaptured by the police. To this day, Jeffrey is still serving his sentence at Central Prison in Raleigh. Who knows? He might still be harboring a new escape plan. The story of Jeffrey is a reminder of the dark side of the human soul, where the line between good and evil is unexpectedly fragile. It is also a lesson for the prison system about understanding the psychology of criminals and striving to rehabilitate them to find their good selves, so that when they return to society, they will no longer be a threat to the community. Video for today ends here. See you in the next videos. Goodbye. Hello. He is a descendant of a noble family with a long-standing business history, wielding immense power and wealth. She is the daughter of a famous national diplomat, born into aristocracy, gentle, elegant, and incredibly talented. In the eyes of others, they are a perfect match. Their union should have been a dreamlike marriage. But unexpectedly, it ended in tragedy. Her death not only unveiled the decadent life of the upper class but also exposed the struggles women face in a patriarchal society. Her demise sparked nationwide outrage, with countless people taking to the streets and many celebrities voicing demands for justice. It also united women to fight for their own safety. What led a once illustrious nobleman to fall and become a cold-blooded murderer? Let's turn back time to 2021 to explore the horrific case that occurred within this aristocratic family, uncovering its complex and intriguing details. Our story takes place in Pakistan, a mysterious country located in South Asia. In many people's perceptions, its presence might not be very prominent, but it is the world's 5th most populous country and predominantly Islamic. Pakistan boasts many religious heritage sites. In the capital region of Islamabad, the Faisal Mosque is the largest in South Asia and can accommodate tens of thousands of worshippers simultaneously. It has become a famous tourist attraction in the country. Our story today unfolds in Islamabad, where this grand mosque is located. The main character is Noor Muqaddam, a talented 27-year-old woman born on October 31, 1993, in Amman, Jordan. Her parents have 3 children, and she is the second child. Notably, her parents are not ordinary people. Her father, Shaukat Muqaddam, is a famous Pakistani diplomat who served as Pakistan's ambassador to South Korea and Ireland. Her mother is said to come from a very influential family. In the early years, due to her father's work, the family lived in Ireland for a long time. So Noor essentially grew up there. because her parents were highly educated and had open-minded educational philosophies. Noor received a good education from a young age. Additionally, her parents fully supported all her interests. Growing up in such a family, Noor became a kind-hearted girl who loved animals and art. She had a grand dream of making the world a better place. Perhaps many people feel this dream is unrealistic. But Noor took it very seriously. She was sincere with everyone and everything around her, hoping to use her small strength to gradually change the world. Later, due to changes in her father's work, the family returned to Pakistan and lived in the capital, Islamabad. Although she had to leave the familiar environment she had known for many years, Noor adapted very well. With her cheerful and friendly personality, she was loved by everyone and quickly grew to love and integrate into this place. Professionally, Noor had clear plans, designing costumes and creating murals. She was very skilled in these fields and had produced many outstanding works. Because her parents were part of Pakistan's upper class, she knew quite a few children from wealthy families, including a young man named Zahir. In fact, due to their parents' work, the two families had known each other for many years and could be considered old friends. Zahir Jaffer, 30 years old, could modestly be called a second-generation rich. But in fact, he was much more than that. He is the son of Zakir Jaffer, an extremely wealthy businessman in Pakistan. Their family has vast assets and immense power. The family company, founded by their ancestors, has a history even longer than the nation of Pakistan itself, with business sectors spanning oil, railways, aviation, pharmaceuticals, and more. His mother, Azmat Adamji, also comes from one of Pakistan's super-rich families, ranked among the top 40 wealthiest families in the country. His parents doted on Zahir, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. Therefore, from a young age, he lived a luxurious life like a prince. Large families often place great importance on educating their descendants, as they are expected to inherit the enormous family business. As a result, Zahir also received an excellent education, attending top schools in Pakistan like Hussain College. Later, he studied business administration and psychology in the United States. He holds dual citizenship in Pakistan and the US compared to Pakistan's conservatism. He preferred the openness of Europe and America. Therefore, he spent much of his time in the US, frequenting bars and entertainment venues. In 2018, by chance, Zahir met Noor, a talented young man and a lively, enthusiastic girl. A match made in heaven. Both came from prestigious families, one from a noble lineage, the other the daughter of a high-ranking official. According to friends around them, they were perfectly matched, a couple made in heaven. After some time getting to know each other, they officially became a couple. Though not to the point of discussing marriage, they dated in this way, making those around them envious. On the evening of July 18, 2021, Noor received an invitation from Zahir to come to his villa located on F7 Street in Islamabad, Pakistan. This is a typical area for the super-rich. Those who live here are all upper class, not ordinary people. Since they were a couple, such an invitation was very normal. Moreover, she had been to this house many times. Noor considered this date as usual, full of anticipation for the evening. Little did she know that this would be a one-way journey with no return, a path to tragedy. This house became the end of her life. Time passed, and by the early morning of July 20, 2021, Noor had lost contact with her family for an entire day. Her father, Shaukat, had spent the day shopping in preparation for the upcoming Eid festival and only returned home in the evening to find that his daughter was not back. At 12:57 a.m., he sent her 3 consecutive messages asking where she was but received no reply. At 5:48 a.m., her mother also sent Noor a message but still received no response. During that time, 2 relatives also called her in the morning, but her phone was off. Facing this situation, her parents couldn't help but worry. At 10:43 a.m., Noor's mother finally received a voice message from her, assuring them she was safe. The specific content of the message was not disclosed. Her parents, whose hearts had been hanging in suspense, were finally relieved. Strangely, almost at the same time, Zahir proactively called them, saying that Noor was not at his house and he didn't know where she was. This was like someone confessing to stealing money before being accused. Although this was a bit strange, since their daughter had reported being safe, her parents didn't pay much attention. However, just a few hours later, Mr. Shawkat received a call from the police. His daughter had been murdered. This news plunged the couple into immense grief, but they had to suppress their pain to go and identify their daughter's body. Learning that the crime scene was Sahir's house made them even more shocked. At the villa, they saw blood all over the room. Noor, 27, lay in a pool of blood. Even more horrifying, her head was nearly severed. An initial examination showed that she had been brutally tortured before death, with many stab wounds and injuries from blunt force trauma. The subsequent forensic report indicated that Noor had been assaulted multiple times, and the cause of death was asphyxiation, meaning the perpetrator continued to decapitate her after she had died. The bloodstains at the scene showed signs of the head being moved. The crime scene was Sahir's house, and the police found the murder weapons, a knife and a baton, on him. He was clearly the prime suspect and was immediately arrested. Notably, at that time, there were many people in the house, including some staff from a medical company. The reason for their presence is still unclear. The person who reported the murder to the police might have been one of those present at the scene. However, perhaps to avoid unnecessary trouble or fear of retaliation, this person did not reveal their identity. Therefore, to this day, the identity of the person who reported the crime remains a mystery. The police were under immense pressure. Everyone understood that this case was not easy to handle, in fact, extremely difficult. Both the victim and the suspect were not people to be easily dealt with. But there was no turning back, the incident had occurred, and they had to proceed. Considering that the suspect, Sahir, held U.S. citizenship and had long operated in the U.S., and it was rumored that he had a considerable criminal record in both countries and had even been deported from the UK. The investigators requested support from the UK and the US, hoping these countries would provide his criminal records. Sahir had a history of violence, was addicted to methamphetamine and cocaine, and had even been arrested for assaulting his own mother. As the investigation deepened, even more unbelievable facts emerged. This case not only involved Sahir but also implicated his parents as accomplices who were aware of the incident. As mentioned earlier, the medical team present in the room was associated with his father and had been sent by him. Through call records and testimonies from the medical company staff, it was revealed that after the murder, Sahir called his parents for help. His father then sent people to the scene to try to destroy evidence and fabricate the crime scene. Fortunately, before they could proceed, someone anonymously called the police, and the incident was exposed. On July 25, 2021, the police arrested Sahir's parents along with several domestic workers, sealed the medical company, and refused bail. It must be said that the police acted very efficiently and decisively this time, mainly because the incident had caused an enormous wave of public outrage. Given the influence of former Ambassador Shawkat both online and offline, many people put pressure on the police. After investigating the crime scene and examining surveillance cameras around the house, the police discovered shocking truths. They reconstructed the entire process as follows. On the evening of July 18, Sahir unexpectedly called Noor, inviting her to his house. At 10:19 p.m., Noor arrived. At that time, she had no idea that Sahir had already booked 2 tickets to New York for a flight at 3:50 a.m. on July 19. He planned to propose to Noor that evening, and if successful, they would go to New York together. However, Noor was not yet ready to marry him. Although they had been dating for 3 years, she ultimately refused Sahir's proposal. In Pakistan, rejecting a marriage proposal is considered highly disrespectful. Sahir, having a strong personality, felt humiliated and became enraged. The two had a quarrel. Around 2:15 a.m. on July 19, Sahir dragged Noor, who was barefoot, out of the house and took a taxi to the airport. However, halfway there, he realized they would miss the flight and turned the car back home. The taxi driver later reported that the two seemed to have argued. The woman was silent with a serious expression, while the man kept shouting. After they returned home, Noor wanted to leave, at 2:41 a.m., as she reached the courtyard. Zahir chased after her, stopped her, and pulled her back into the house. At 7:12 a.m. on July 20th, Noor jumped from the upper floor in an attempt to escape. She walked on the roof, holding her stomach, heading towards the main gate, but was stopped by the security guard and the gardener. Shortly after, noticing something was wrong, Zahir jumped down, snatched Noor's phone, and locked her in the guardhouse. A few minutes later, Zahir angrily went to the guardhouse, dragged Noor back into the house. After that, the surveillance cameras no longer recorded any images of Noor. The next time she appeared was when she had been murdered. Clearly, this house was the primary crime scene. Interestingly, on November 14, 2021, the Pakistan Electronic Media Regulatory Authority banned all satellite TV channels from broadcasting this leaked surveillance footage. The police speculated that after Noor's multiple failed escape attempts, Zahir brutally tortured her, a process that lasted an entire day, ultimately leading to her death. After being arrested, Zahir did not confess. However, this case had ample evidence and clear clues, no matter how he defended himself. It was difficult to escape conviction. DNA test results showed Zahir's DNA in Noor's body. Noor's fingernails contained Zahir's skin tissues. Blood from both Noor and Zahir was found on his shirt. The knife's blade and handle both had Noor's blood. And the knife belonged to Zahir. Noor's blood was also found on the baton, which was also owned by Zahir. The only person with Noor from beginning to end was Zahir. He was the sole suspect. On Zahir's phone, the police found videos of him torturing Noor. Although the videos had been deleted, the police eventually recovered them. All these clues pointed to Zahir as the murderer. Of course, he was not the only perpetrator. On October 14, the Islamabad court indicted 12 suspects, including Zahir, his parents, 3 domestic workers, and 6 employees of the medical company. The security guard and the gardener were charged with failing to assist a person in danger, preventing Noor from escaping, thereby indirectly causing her death. The others were charged with knowing but not reporting, and attempting to destroy evidence and fabricate the crime scene. This case attracted widespread attention from the Pakistani public. Everyone was watching to see how this case involving 2 of the most powerful families would unfold. Many singers, actors, journalists, and other celebrities voiced their opinions online, all using the hashtag #JusticeForNoor. Besides the online voices, many people organized memorial activities for Noor in real life to honor this kind-hearted girl. Memorials were held in Noor's hometown as well as in Berlin, Los Angeles, New York, London, Toronto, and many other places. Although countless people stood on Noor's side, her parents understood that facing a wealthy and powerful family, the trial would certainly not be easy, and unpredictable changes might occur. Indeed, from the detention phase awaiting trial, the 2 sides began to confront each other. Zahir's family hired a professional team of lawyers. During the trial, this team used every trick, arguing and debating based on every relevant law, attempting to delay the trial and reduce the charges. Zahir, the perpetrator, was equally cunning. On the way to court, he remained arrogant and mocked everyone. "It's ridiculous to arrest me. I'm American, not Pakistani. My lawyer will explain everything to you." Not only was his attitude arrogant, but he also made up many different stories during the 25 hearings, trying to deceive the judge. Sometimes he said Noor had many boyfriends and was killed by one of them. Other times, he claimed Noor brought a large amount of drugs to his house and demanded he host a party. He said he didn't agree and went to sleep. A few hours later, he woke up to find himself tied up. So Noor was killed during the drug party, and he knew nothing about it. At other times, he said he proposed to Noor but was rejected. They then had a scuffle, and he accidentally killed her. In short, none of his words were true. Moreover, to evade punishment, Zahir used all sorts of tricks, such as being carried on a stretcher into the courtroom or attending hearings in a wheelchair. He was even expelled from the courtroom multiple times for disruptive behavior. When he felt the judge didn't believe him, he pointed directly at the judge and cursed. After cursing, he pretended to be mentally ill. acting and speaking incoherently. The prosecution felt helpless in the face of Zahir's bizarre behavior and could only respond as best they could. When he claimed to be mentally ill, they arranged for psychiatrists to examine him. When he said he was too ill to attend court, they brought in specialists for a comprehensive examination and even provided a caregiver, transporting him on a stretcher. Finally, when he ran out of tricks, Zahir shouted, "I'm American. Pakistan has no right to judge me. I demand to be tried in the U.S." Indeed, he is an American citizen. The U.S. Embassy in Pakistan even sent staff to visit him in prison. However, the U.S. side declared that American citizens abroad must abide by the laws of the host country. When Americans are arrested abroad, the embassy can inquire about their situation and provide legal assistance but cannot offer legal advice, participate in court proceedings, or help secure their release. Pakistan's Prime Minister at the time, Imran Khan, publicly stated that the perpetrator would be severely punished, regardless of whether he held foreign citizenship. The Pakistani government even specifically notified border checkpoints of Zahir's name to prevent him from fleeing abroad. On February 24, 2022, after 8 months of trial and prolonged confrontation, the Islamabad court announced the final verdict. Zahir was convicted of murdering Noor and sentenced to death. Yes, Pakistan has the death penalty. In addition, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison and fined 200,000 rupees for assault, 10 years in prison and a 100,000 rupee fine for kidnapping, and 1 year in prison for illegal confinement. In total, he was fined 300,000 Pakistani rupees, equivalent to about 27 million Vietnamese dongs at the current exchange rate. The 2 domestic workers at Zahir's house, the security guard and the gardener, were each sentenced to 10 years in prison. As for Zahir's parents and others prosecuted by the prosecution, although they knew and did not report and attempted to cover up, they were ultimately acquitted. Noor's father expressed relief at this result. He told the media outside the court, "I am very happy that justice has been served. The law is truly fair." However, he still expressed doubts about the acquittal of the others and subsequently appealed to the court, arguing that they should also be held accountable. After reviewing, the court upheld the original verdict. Zahir, who was sentenced to death, and the 2 domestic workers who were sentenced to 10 years in prison also appealed to the Islamabad High Court, seeking reduced sentences. After consideration, the High Court deemed the sentences appropriate and even increased the punishment for Zahir's assault charge to the death penalty, meaning he now faced 2 death sentences. Regarding this, Noor's father stated that this result proves to everyone that no one stands above the law. Although Zahir was sentenced to death, carrying out the execution is a very complex matter. On October 12, 2023, Zahir appealed to the Supreme Court of Pakistan, presenting 3 reasons, essentially claiming the verdict was unfair. The Supreme Court did not accept this appeal. In fact, after the case was widely reported, it became a national case in Pakistan. Therefore, the government absolutely dared not neglect it. Zahir's family also understood this. So after the incident, a spokesperson for the family immediately declared cutting ties with Zahir. The Jaffer family extends its deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of Noor. "We are shocked and saddened by this horrific act. We deeply regret this. Additionally, we strongly condemn this violent act and will forever denounce Zahir and his actions." Zahir's maternal family also clearly stated, "Our family strongly condemns Zahir's brutal actions. We do not and will never support Zahir in any form. We firmly support the country's laws. Justice for Noor must be served and will certainly be served." Zahir's parents also declared through their lawyer, "We stand firmly on the side of the victim and absolutely do not shield this son." Therefore, currently, Zahir has been abandoned by everyone, and the only path awaiting him is execution by hanging, although it is not yet known when the sentence will be carried out. Since he has denied his guilt from beginning to end, his motive remains unknown. Perhaps one day he will truly repent and confess, or perhaps he will die without remorse, and the motive will forever remain a mystery. Noor's tragedy was like a spark that ignited a heavy bomb, pushing the issue of violence against women in Pakistan to its peak. In fact, gender inequality in Pakistan is very serious. Women have a very low status in many aspects, such as education, employment, and even within the family. According to the Global Gender Gap Index 2021, among 156 countries, Pakistan ranked 153rd, fourth from the bottom. In 2022, it was even worse. Among 146 countries, Pakistan ranked 145th. Some of you might have heard the term honor killing, which refers to the killing of family members, tribe members, or community members to protect what they believe is the honor or reputation of the family. Honor killings occur worldwide, with an estimated 5,000 cases annually. Kandil Balak, a 26-year-old internet celebrity known as the Kim Kardashian of Pakistan, was brutally murdered by her own brother simply for posting provocative photos online. Notably, after being arrested, the brother did not recognize his wrongdoing. Instead, he felt that protecting the family's honor was a glorious and proud act. Such incidents are not rare, they just seldom come to light. Hundreds, even thousands, of women are killed in Pakistan each year, and many more endure brutal violence. According to a survey by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, at least 85% of Pakistani women have experienced physical or sexual abuse by their partners in their lifetime, a number that tops the world but receives little media attention. Only a very small number of perpetrators are punished. Most cases are overlooked. According to United Nations estimates, the conviction rate for such cases is only about 1% to 2.5%. Although in recent years, Pakistan has strived to enact new laws to protect women and established special courts to try cases of gender-based violence, they still face many difficulties. For example, the Domestic Violence, Prevention and Protection Act of Pakistan, enacted in 2020, aims to protect women, children, the elderly, and other vulnerable groups from domestic violence through legal measures. But it only applies to the Islamabad Capital Territory, although it was passed by the National Assembly in April and the Senate in June. Strangely, it was later said that the act was not in line with Islamic teachings, so it was directly shelved, and no further action was taken. Just 1 month before Noor was murdered, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan made a shocking statement: if women wear few clothes, it will have an impact on men unless they are robots. He meant that the increase in cases involving women was mainly due to their dressing too provocatively. This statement sparked nationwide protests at the time. Unexpectedly, before the matter was settled, Noor was murdered. Therefore, the issue of women's safety in Pakistan is very urgent. According to many Pakistani women, seeking justice for Noor is the first step forward. But there is still a long way to go. When gender becomes a reason for bullying and discrimination, when those in power can act arbitrarily without punishment, when money can manipulate justice and decide life and death, no one can truly have safety and freedom. Under the voices of countless people, the Pakistani government finally recognized the severity of the problem and began to focus attention on similar incidents. It is believed that with the joint efforts of the whole society and the struggle of countless brave women, Pakistan will eventually welcome a society where women no longer have to live in fear, a society with gender equality. She could be anyone's daughter or sister, therefore, there must be a standard. If people with great influence or immense wealth think they can stand above the law, and they are sentenced to death, everyone will believe that the law is fair and no one can stand above it. Today's video ends here. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.